Moving on to question number 21. Discuss the continuity of the following functions. You have learnt in your example question that sin x is continuous and cos x is also a continuous function. இப்போ நம்ம என்ன பண்ண போறோம்? I'm going to take g of x to be cos x and h of x to be sin x. What did we learn about continuity? If g is a continuous function and h is a continuous function, அப்ப என்னென்னலாம் relations தெரியும்? You have the sum is continuous, the difference is continuous, the product is continuous, and the division is also continuous provided the denominator is not equal to 0. இந்த conditions-லாம் படிச்சோமா? So first நம்ம என்ன prove பண்ண போறோம்? We are going to prove that g is continuous and h is continuous. அதாவது cos is a continuous function and sin is a continuous function. இது ரெண்டுமே prove பண்ணிட்டா I can use these four relations to prove that the given three subsections இது மூணுமே continuous னு prove பண்ணிடலாம். இந்த இடத்துல என்ன இருக்கு? Addition இருக்கு. இந்த இடத்துல subtraction, இந்த இடத்துல multiplication. Okay? G of x என்ன? G of x is going to be cos x. Okay? So G of x, I'll change it. I have sin x first, அப்புறம் cos x இருக்கு. அதனால I will just change g as h and h as g. Okay? So இந்த இடத்துல h, இது g. Okay? Now, my h of x is cos x. இப்போ cos x continuous னு நம்ம prove பண்ண போறோம். So what is my first step? h of c is going to be cos c. So இத first நம்ம mark பண்ணிடலாம். h of c is cos c. Now I need to prove that the limit also gives me the same value. அப்ப என்ன பண்ணோம்? Limit x tends to c of f of x, which is going to be limit x tends to c of f of x என்ன? Cos x. But do you have to substitute the value directly? No. Whenever you're dealing with a trigonometric function, you always have to change your variable. என்னன்னு change பண்ண போறோம்? I'm going to change my x to be c plus h. இந்த மாதிரி change பண்ண போறோம். என்ன நமக்கு limitல value இருக்கோ that plus h. So what will my h become? h is going to be x minus c. அப்ப if x tends to c, my h will tend to x minus c, which is c minus c, which is 0. Correct? அப்ப x tending to c is very very equivalent to h tending to 0. இப்போ என்னோட limit எப்படி change ஆகும்? Limit h tends to 0 of cos of x another c plus h. Okay? So this is of the form cos of a plus b. Cos of a plus b என்ன formula தெரியும்? Cos of a plus b is going to be cos a cos b minus sin a sin b. Correct? Plus இருந்ததுனா minus, minus இருந்ததுனா plus. Okay. Now applying the formula, what will I have? Limit h tends to 0 of cos a cos b minus sin a sin b. When I apply the limit, what will I have? H is 0 pota, I'll have cos c cos 0 minus sin c sin 0. So I have cos c cos 0 is 1 minus sin 0 is a 0. So in the whole term will go off. It will become a 0. So I am getting a cos c. So what do I see? I have cos c ingeyum I have cos c. So I see that the limit and the function is equal. So cos x is a continuous function. Similarly, you have to prove that sine is also a continuous function. We have done this in the examples, but again I'll do it for you. இதுக்கு மேல நான் பண்ண மாட்டேன். Okay? So please note it down. Please have it in your mind that sine and cos are continuous functions. Okay? So இப்போ என்னோட g of x என்ன? g of x is sin x. So my g of c is going to be sin c. g தானே? Yes. g of c is going to be sin c. இப்போ இதை வந்து highlighterல mark பண்ணிடலாமா? So I have g of c to be sin c. Limitum வந்து அதே தான் வரப்போகுது. நமக்கு தெரியும் it is going to be the same limit. But how do you prove it? Limit x tends to c of f of x, which is going to be limit x tends to c of sin x. You should not substitute the value directly. X is equal to c plus h in edutha. H is going to be x minus c. X tends to c, so h tends to 0. Okay, very very similar. So limit h tends to 0 of sin of c plus h. போன questionல sin of c plus h என்ன formula பார்த்தோம்? We saw that sin of c plus h, a plus b is sin a cos b plus cos a sin b. போன questionல பார்த்தோமா? It is right here. Okay? Now when I apply the same thing over here, what will I have? Sin of a plus b, which is limit h tends to 0 of sin a cos b plus cos a sin b. the formula apply பண்ணலாம். Now I'm going to apply the limit. H is equal to 0 போட்டா I'll have sin C cos 0 plus cos C sin 0. So this whole term will become a 0. And sin 0 is a 0. So I'll be left with sin C. So you see that the value here is a sin C and the value that you marked on the top is also a sin C. So it is continuous. Okay. So I have g of x is continuous and h of x is continuous. So the given subsections in sin x plus cos x. Sin x plus cos x is continuous. Sin x minus cos x is continuous. And sin x times cos x is also a continuous function. Okay. So I have first, second and the third subsections are all continuous using these relations. In the relations I use panni, I have all of these to be continuous. Okay. So this is how you have to write. Please copy. Question number 22. It is a very straightforward question. So, இப்போ இந்த இடத்துல என்ன கேக்குறாங்க? Discuss the continuity of cosine, cos function, then the continuity of cosecant. So, I have cosecant of x. Let me make this smaller. So, I have cos x, cosecant of x, adukaprom secant, secant of x, and I need cot of x. I have to prove that all these functions are continuous. So, I proved that cos is a continuous function. Please check my previous question. Correct? Pona question liye nama prove பண்ணிட்டோம். So, இப்போ cosecant, secant and cot. So, I am going to take my f of x to be cosecant x, which I can also write it as 1 divided by sin x. What did I prove in my previous question? Sin x is continuous. But whenever you have a function in the denominator, it should not be equal to 0. So, my denominator should not be equal to 0. Now, my sin x should not be equal to 0. So, what should be my x value? X should not be equal to n pi. You very well know that the sin value of x is equal to 0 when x is equal to n pi. But this should not be the case. If it should not be the case, x is not equal to n pi is my condition. So, x not equal to n pi na sin x not equal to 0. So, cosecant is also a continuous function. Everywhere except enga? Everywhere except x is equal to n pi. So, any value where x is not equal to n pi, the function is continuous. Okay. So, this is my cosecant x oda case. Ipo secant x. So, I will take g of x to be secant x, which I can also write it as 1 by cos x. So, similarly, I have cos x is continuous, but I want my denominator to not be equal to 0. So, I have cos x not equal to 0. Appo x oda condition enava irukku koodadhu? It should not be equal to 2n plus 1 times pi divided by 2. You remember? Cos x is equal to 0 when x is equal to 2n plus 1 times pi by 2. You remember this? So, here in this case, it should not be equal to that case. So, I have x is equal to 2n plus 1. Adi indha mari irukka koodadhu. So, in this case, I will have x not equal to 2n plus 1 times pi by 2. So, secant x is also continuous everywhere except, this is how you write your answer. Okay, everywhere except x is equal to 2n plus 1 times pi divided by 2. You have to remember all these conditions. Okay, இப்போ third enna? Cot x. So, similarly, I am going to take h of x to be cot x, which I can also write it as cos x divided by sin x. So, I know that cos x and sin x are continuous, but my denominator should not be equal to 0. Appo sin x not equal to 0 na x not equal to 0. Sorry, x not equal to n pi. So, cot x is also continuous except x is equal to n pi. X is equal to n pi thavara cot x is also a continuous function. Okay, please copy.